Naomi Baptiste thought she was losing her mind. The bite marks on her neck, the missing hours, the impossible dreams of a man with eyes like liquid silver. All of it had to be exhaustion from closing the biggest deal of her career. But when Damien Ashford cornered her in his penthouse office at midnight, his fangs gleaming in the moonlight as he whispered her name like a prayer, she realized the truth was far more dangerous than any delusion. He had already claimed her once. And he was about to do it again. Naomi Baptiste opened her eyes to silk sheets and confusion. The morning light filtering through her bedroom curtains felt sharp, almost painful, as if her pupils couldn't quite adjust to the ordinary brightness of a Tuesday in Manhattan. She lay still for several heartbeats, listening to the distant hum of traffic on Fifth Avenue, trying to piece together the fragments of a night that felt more like fever dream than memory. Her hand moved instinctively to her neck. The skin there felt tender, hypersensitive beneath her fingertips. She threw back the covers and crossed to the full-length mirror near her closet, pulling aside the collar of her silk pajama top. 2 small marks, barely visible but undeniably there, marred the smooth, dark brown skin at the curve where her neck met her shoulder. "Impossible," she whispered. But even as the word left her lips, flashes of memory assaulted her. A penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, a man with silver eyes and a voice like aged whiskey. The sensation of falling, of surrendering, of something sharp and sweet piercing her skin while pleasure flooded every nerve ending. Naomi pressed her palm against the marks, half expecting them to vanish, to prove themselves the product of stress-induced hallucination. The Ashford Global merger had consumed her life for 3 months, 16-hour days, endless due diligence. A promotion to senior analyst, riding on the success of today's final presentation. It made sense that her mind might conjure strange dreams, didn't it? Except dreams didn't leave physical evidence. She checked her phone. 6:45 in the morning. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock at Ashford Tower, the gleaming obsidian skyscraper in Midtown that housed one of the most powerful private equity firms in the world. She had exactly 3 hours and 15 minutes to shower, dress, review her presentation one final time, and convince herself that she wasn't slowly losing her grip on reality. The hot water helped. Naomi let it cascade over her shoulders, washing away the lingering sense of disorientation. She'd worked too hard to let paranoia derail her now. Whatever happened last night, stress, sleepwalking, some bizarre reaction to the sleeping pills her doctor prescribed, it didn't matter. Today was about proving herself in a world that made women, especially black women, fight twice as hard for half the recognition. By the time she stepped out of her apartment building onto Fifth Avenue, Naomi had transformed herself into the image of controlled professionalism. Her natural hair was pulled back in an elegant low bun. Her charcoal grey Tom Ford suit fit perfectly, paired with a cream silk blouse that covered her neck completely. Diamond studs, a gift to herself after her first major deal, caught the morning light. Her briefcase contained 3 copies of the merger analysis, printed on premium paper, along with her tablet backup. She looked like success. She felt like someone standing on the edge of a cliff. The subway ride to Midtown passed in a blur of bodies and noise. Naomi reviewed her notes on her phone, forcing herself to focus on numbers, projections, market analyses. The Ashford Global deal involved acquiring 3 mid-sized tech firms and consolidating them under one umbrella. Her analysis proved the merger would generate $273 million in value over 5 years. It was brilliant work. Her colleagues had said so. Her boss had said so. So why did her hands tremble as she emerged from the subway into the shadow of Ashford Tower? The building rose 60 stories, its black glass surface reflecting the morning sky like a dark mirror. Naomi had been here a dozen times over the past 3 months for meetings, due diligence sessions, negotiations, But today felt different. Today the tower seemed to pulse with an energy she couldn't name, as if the building itself were alive and waiting. She passed through security, her heels clicking against marble floors so polished they resembled black ice. The elevator ride to the 58th floor felt longer than usual, the ascent marked by the quiet hum of machinery and her own shallow breathing. "Get it together," she told herself. "You're Naomi Baptiste. You graduated top of your class from Columbia. You've closed deals that made grown men weep. You've got this." The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that screamed understated wealth. Soft grey walls. Modern art that probably cost more than her annual salary. A receptionist, who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, offered a professional smile. "Good morning. You must be Ms. Baptiste from Sterling and Cross. We've been expecting you." "Thank you. I'm here for the 10 o'clock board meeting." "Of course. Conference room A. But first, Mr. Ashford would like to see you privately in his office. Top floor. Just take the executive elevator to your right." Naomi's breath caught. "Mr. Ashford? I wasn't aware." "It's just a brief meeting before the presentation. He likes to personally greet key team members on major deals." The receptionist's smile remained pleasant, but something in her eyes suggested this wasn't a request Naomi could decline. "Of course," Naomi heard herself say. The executive elevator required a key card, which the receptionist provided. As the doors closed and the elevator began its ascent to the 60th floor, the top of Ashford Tower, Naomi felt her pulse accelerate. She'd never met Damien Ashford directly. The CEO rarely involved himself in the granular details of deals, leaving that to his vice presidents and directors. She'd seen him only in photographs, a devastatingly handsome man in his mid-30s with sharp features, dark hair, and an intensity that seemed to burn through the camera lens. The elevator opened directly into a private lobby, more dark marble, more expensive art, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a dizzying view of Manhattan spreading out in every direction. "Ms. Baptiste." The voice came from behind her, low and smooth as aged scotch. Naomi turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Damien Ashford stood in the doorway to his office, backlit by the morning sun, and Naomi's world tilted. He was taller than she'd expected, easily 6'3", with a lean, powerful build beneath an impeccably tailored black suit. His hair was dark, almost black, swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and classical proportions, but it was his eyes that made her breath stop. Silver. Not grey, not pale blue, but genuine metallic silver, like moonlight captured in human form. The same eyes from her dream. Words failed her. Damien moved closer, each step measured and graceful. "I apologize for the last-minute meeting. I wanted to speak with you before the presentation." He extended his hand. "I'm Damien Ashford." His hand was cool when she took it, his grip firm but not aggressive. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up Naomi's arm. Images flashed through her mind, his penthouse, his hands on her waist, his mouth against her neck. She pulled away, stumbling back a step. "Are you all right?" His expression showed concern, but something else lurked beneath it, recognition, hunger. "I'm fine. Naomi pressed her hand to her neck instinctively, covering the marks hidden beneath her collar. Damien's eyes followed the gesture. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Would you like some water?" he asked. "Please, come in." Naomi knew she should refuse, should insist on going straight to the board meeting. But her feet carried her forward, following him into an office that occupied the entire corner of the building. The space was vast, yet intimate, decorated in shades of charcoal and cream, with furniture that looked simultaneously modern and timeless. One wall was entirely books, leather-bound volumes that seemed far too old to be decorative. Damien poured water from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses. He handed her one, and she noticed he didn't drink from his own. "You've done exceptional work on this merger," he said, moving to stand before the windows, hands in his pockets. "Your analysis was the most thorough I've seen in 20 years. Thank you, Mr. Ashford. Damien, please." He turned to look at her, and the intensity in those silver eyes made her feel transparent. "Tell me, Miss Baptiste, do you believe in fate?" The question was so unexpected that Naomi nearly laughed. "That's rather philosophical for a business meeting." "Humor me," she considered. "I believe we make our own destinies. Hard work, preparation, seizing opportunities." "All very American dream of you," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "But what if some things are written long before we're born? What if some connections transcend logic?" Naomi's pulse quickened. "I don't understand what this has to do with the merger." "It doesn't." Damien took a step closer. "It has to do with you and me, and the fact that you remember last night, even though you're trying very hard to convince yourself you don't." The water glass nearly slipped from her hand. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Another step. He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtly spiced. "You came to my penthouse. We talked for hours. You fell asleep on my sofa, and I did something I shouldn't have. Something I haven't done in a very long time." Naomi's heart was racing now, her logical mind warring with the fragments of memory demanding to be acknowledged. "This is insane." "Yes," he agreed softly. "It is. And yet here we are. I should go." She set down the water glass, her hand shaking. "The presentation will wait." His voice held quiet command. "Naomi, may I call you Naomi? I need you to listen very carefully. What happened last night wasn't a dream. It wasn't exhaustion or stress or medication. It was real, and whether you choose to believe it or not, everything has already changed." She backed toward the door. She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't voice the impossible word her mind kept screaming. Damien smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I had hoped to ease you into this truth more gently. But time is not our ally, and there are others who know what you are to me. You're in danger, Naomi. The moment I tasted your blood, I painted a target on your back." "Stop!" The word came out sharper than she intended. "Just stop! I don't know what kind of game this is." "It's not a game." In one fluid motion, faster than her eyes could track, Damien was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from his body. "Look at me. Really look." And she did, though every instinct screamed at her to run. His eyes held centuries. She could see it now, the weight of time that sat behind those silver irises. This wasn't a 35-year-old CEO. This was something ancient, wearing a human mask. "What are you?" she whispered. Damien's hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he gently tugged down her collar, exposing the 2 small marks on her neck. His fingertips brushed the wounds, and pleasure mixed with fear shot through her body. "I think you already know," he said quietly. "The question is, are you brave enough to accept it?" Naomi's world spun. Everything she'd built, her career, her rational understanding of reality, her carefully controlled life, was crumbling. But beneath the terror, beneath the denial, something else stirred. A dark curiosity, a pull toward this impossible man that felt as inevitable as gravity. "The presentation," she heard herself say weakly, "can happen in an hour. Right now, you need to decide whether you're going to run, which would be wise but ultimately futile, or whether you're going to stay and let me explain everything." Naomi met his eyes. She thought of her mother, who'd raised her alone and taught her to be fearless. She thought of every challenge she'd faced, every barrier she'd broken. She'd never been a woman who ran from hard truths, even when those truths involved vampires. "1 hour," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Tell me everything, then I decide." Something like respect flickered across Damien's face. He stepped back, giving her space, and gestured toward the leather sofa near the windows. 1 hour, he agreed. "Though I suspect, Naomi Baptiste, that you've already decided, you just don't know it yet." She sat, her briefcase still clutched in her lap, like a shield against the impossible. Damien settled into the chair across from her, his posture relaxed despite the tension crackling between them. "Where would you like me to begin?" he asked. "With what I am, with how long I've existed, or with why, in 347 years, you're the first woman whose blood has sung to me like a symphony?" Naomi swallowed hard. "Start with the bite. Start with last night." Damien leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and began to speak. Outside the windows, Manhattan gleamed in the morning sun, unaware that in the highest tower in Midtown, a woman's entire understanding of the universe was being rewritten. And somewhere in the city below, ancient eyes watched and waited, knowing that Damien Ashford had finally found his weakness. The game, after all, was just beginning. The board meeting happened in a haze. Naomi delivered her presentation with mechanical precision, her voice steady, even as her mind replayed every impossible word Damien Ashford had spoken in his office. The board members nodded, asked questions she answered automatically, and ultimately approved the merger with unanimous consent. Her boss from Sterling and Cross beamed with pride. Colleagues shook her hand. Someone mentioned champagne. She felt none of it. Because 347 years sat across the conference table from her, watching with silver eyes that saw through every carefully constructed wall she'd ever built. Damien had told her the truth, with the kind of calm one might use to discuss market trends. He was a vampire. He'd been born in 1678 in the French countryside, the youngest son of a minor nobleman. He'd been turned at 32 by a woman he'd loved and trusted, who'd neglected to mention that her kiss would cost him the sunlight forever. He'd built his fortune slowly, across centuries, learning to navigate the human world while existing outside it. And 3 nights ago, at a private cocktail reception for the merger, he'd caught Naomi's scent across a crowded room and known, with the certainty that came from 3 centuries of existence, that she was different. "Your bloodline," he'd explained, his voice soft but urgent, "carries something rare, something that calls to us, to me. I tried to resist. I stayed away from you during all the meetings. But that night, when you stayed late, when you came to return documents to my penthouse." He'd trailed off, his jaw tightening with what might have been shame. "You invited me in," Naomi had whispered, fragments of memory solidifying. "We talked about the merger. You offered wine. We stood by the windows. And I lost control." The admission cost him. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders. "I fed from you, not enough to turn you, not even enough to hurt you permanently, but enough to create a connection, enough that others of my kind will sense my mark on you." The implications of that statement were still sinking in as Naomi sat through congratulatory handshakes and discussions of implementation timelines. She smiled, she nodded, she played her role. But when Damien appeared at her elbow as the conference room emptied and said quietly, "Dinner tonight, my penthouse. We need to discuss your safety," she didn't argue. She was in too deep to swim back to shore now. Evening came with the kind of golden light that made Manhattan look almost forgiving. Naomi stood in her apartment, staring at her reflection, trying to decide who she was dressing for. The powerful CEO who might be lying about everything, or the ancient creature who'd marked her as his own. She chose a dress of deep emerald silk that flowed like water against her skin, cut simply but elegantly with a high neckline that covered the marks on her throat. Her hair fell in natural curls around her shoulders, diamond earrings, heels that gave her confidence even when logic failed. The car Damien sent arrived at 8 o'clock exactly. The driver, a silent man with cold eyes, opened the door without speaking. Naomi slid into the back of the black Mercedes, noting the privacy screen, the tinted windows, the sense of moving through the city like a ghost. Damien's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a pre-war building overlooking Central Park. Naomi had been here before, or thought she had, but tonight the space revealed itself differently. She noticed details she'd missed. The way every mirror seemed strategically absent, the heavy blackout curtains on every window, the art on the walls that was too old to be reproductions. Damien waited on the terrace, a private rooftop garden that should have been impossible in Manhattan, but existed anyway, lush and secret beneath the darkening sky. He'd changed from his business suit into black slacks and a charcoal cashmere sweater that made him look less like a CEO and more like what he truly was, something beautiful and dangerous, wearing a civilized mask. "You came," he said, turning as she stepped outside. Relief flickered across his features. "I wasn't certain you would." "I'm not certain I should have." Naomi accepted the glass of wine he offered, though she noticed again that he didn't pour one for himself. The terrace was lit with small lanterns that cast golden light across the garden, making the city beyond feel impossibly distant. But running from impossible things has never been my style. "No," Damien agreed, his lips curving slightly. "I imagine it hasn't. Shall we sit? I had dinner prepared. You should eat." The table was set with white linens and silver, intimate but not ostentatiously romantic. The meal itself was exquisite. Seared duck breast with blackberry reduction, roasted vegetables that tasted like summer, bread still warm from someone's oven. Naomi ate slowly, aware of Damien watching her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but instead felt like being studied by an artist. "You're not eating," she observed. "I can eat human food," he said. "It just doesn't sustain me. It's more aesthetic at this point." "How often do you need to feed?" The clinical question helped her maintain distance from the emotional enormity of the situation. "Every few weeks, if I'm careful. More frequently if I'm injured, or if I exert significant power." He paused. "I have sources, willing donors. I haven't killed to feed in over a century." "How progressive of you." A smile ghosted across his face. "You're handling this remarkably well." "I'm falling apart inside," Naomi admitted. "I'm just very good at not showing it." "Yes," Damien said softly. "I've noticed. It's one of the things that drew me to you, even before I caught your scent. You have this incredible armor, this fortress you've built around yourself, but underneath—" He leaned forward slightly. "Underneath, you're burning with all the things you don't let yourself feel." Naomi set down her wineglass with more force than intended. "You don't know me. I know what your blood told me." His voice dropped, intimate and dangerous. "When a vampire feeds, we don't just taste. We feel. We see. I felt your loneliness, Naomi, your brilliance, your hunger to prove yourself in a world that makes you fight for every inch of respect. I felt your mother's love, her sacrifice. I felt the walls you built after your father left when you were 9 years old. I felt—" "Stop!" She stood abruptly, moving to the edge of the terrace where the iron railing overlooked the dark expanse of Central Park. The city glittered beyond. Millions of lights, millions of lives untouched by the supernatural. "You had no right." She heard him rise, felt him approach. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could sense the cold that radiated from his body, but not touching. "You're right," he said quietly. "I didn't, and I violated you in ways that can't be undone. If I could take it back, would you?" Naomi turned to face him. "Would you really?" The question hung between them. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine from somewhere in the garden. Damien's silver eyes held hers, and in them she saw the truth he couldn't speak. "No," he finally said, "I wouldn't, because now you're in my blood as much as I'm in yours. And I've existed 347 years without feeling truly alive. And then you walked into that reception 3 nights ago, and everything changed." Naomi's breath caught. "That's not fair. None of this is fair." He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, and when she didn't, he cupped her cheek with cool fingers. "You should leave. You should run as far from me as possible. There are others of my kind who will see you as a threat, as a weakness they can exploit. My ex-lover Elena will come for you. She's ancient, powerful, and viciously possessive." "Then why am I still here?" Naomi whispered, even as she leaned into his touch. "Because you feel it too." His thumb brushed her lower lip. "This impossible pull, this recognition. I could have compelled you to forget that night, erased every memory of what happened. But I didn't. Do you know why?" She shook her head, not trusting her voice. "Because I wanted you to choose." And Damien's other hand came up, framing her face. "I wanted you to know the truth and choose me anyway. Choose this impossibility. Choose to walk into the darkness with me." "I don't believe in fairy tales," Naomi said, but her voice had lost its conviction. "Neither do I." His forehead rested against hers. "I believe in blood and power and survival. I believe in centuries of loneliness and the careful construction of empires. But I also believe that in 347 years I've never met anyone who made me want to feel human again. Until you." The kiss, when it came, was inevitable as gravity. His lips were cool against hers, but the passion behind them burned. Naomi's hands fisted in his sweater, pulling him closer even as her rational mind screamed warnings. This was insane, impossible, dangerous beyond measure, but it felt like coming home. Damien's arms wrapped around her, lifting her slightly as he deepened the kiss. She tasted mint and something darker, something ancient. His control was absolute. No fangs, no threat, just the kiss of a man who'd spent centuries perfecting the art of touch. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily despite only one of them needing air, Naomi felt tears on her cheeks. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I don't know how to be what you need." "You don't have to be anything but yourself." Damien wiped away her tears with his thumbs. "But I need you to understand the danger. Elena will come. Others may follow. Being with me means accepting a world that exists in shadows. It means secrets, risks, and potentially losing everything you've built." Naomi thought of her career, her carefully planned future, the safe, logical life she'd constructed. Then she thought of the electricity that sang through her veins when Damien touched her. The way his eyes saw past every defense, the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of standing on the edge of something vast and unknowable. "Show me," she said suddenly. "Show me your world. Really show me." Damien's expression shifted, surprise mixing with something darker. "Are you certain? I need to see the truth, all of it, not just the beautiful penthouse and the careful control. Show me what you really are." For a long moment, he simply looked at her. Then he stepped back, and something in his posture changed. The careful humanity he wore like a second skin began to slip away. His eyes brightened, the silver taking on an almost luminous quality. His canines lengthened subtly, not dramatically, but enough to remind her that the mouth that had just kissed her could kill. The air around him seemed to thicken with power, with age, with something primal and predatory. Naomi's heart raced, but she didn't retreat. "I could move faster than you could see," Damien said, his voice taking on a resonance that vibrated through her bones. I could hear your heartbeat from a mile away. I could crush steel with my bare hands. I could compel almost any human to do anything I wished. I've killed. I've conquered. I've watched civilizations rise and fall. I am not human, Naomi. I am something older and colder and far more dangerous than you can imagine. He was magnificent and terrifying, and Naomi understood in that moment what it meant to be prey, but she also understood something else. "You're alone," she said softly. "For all that power, all those centuries, you're desperately, achingly alone." The predator facade cracked. Damien's eyes widened slightly, genuine emotion breaking through the ancient mask. "Yes," he admitted, the word barely audible. Naomi closed the distance between them, her hand rising to rest against his chest, where a heart once beat. "Show me the rest. Show me where you sleep. Show me how you live." Damien searched her face, looking for fear, for hesitation. Finding neither, he took her hand and led her back inside. The penthouse revealed its secrets slowly. A wine cellar that held bottles from centuries past. A library with first editions and personal correspondence from historical figures. A room lined with portraits of people Damien had known, loved, lost. And finally, behind a hidden panel in his bedroom, a chamber with no windows and a bed that looked more like a sanctuary than a place of rest. "I don't sleep like humans," Damien explained. "When the sun rises, I fall into something like death, complete unconsciousness, total vulnerability." "Have you ever shown anyone else this?" Naomi asked, running her fingers along the silk sheets. "Not in 100 years." She turned to look at him. "Why me?" "Because when I tasted your blood, I didn't just feel your emotions. I felt possibility. I felt the first hope I've had since I was turned that maybe, just maybe, I could share this cursed existence with someone who saw past the monster." Naomi moved closer, her hand finding his. "I do see the monster," she said honestly. "But I also see the man who's trying so hard not to be one." Damien pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she might disappear. They stood like that for a long time, in a hidden chamber beneath Manhattan, while the city pulsed with life above them. "Stay tonight," he whispered into her hair. "Just stay. Let me hold you. Nothing more. Just let me pretend for one night that I'm not alone." And Naomi, against every ounce of self-preservation she possessed, nodded. They lay together on the silk sheets, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her. He told her stories of centuries past, of Marie Antoinette's court, of the French Revolution, of sailing ships and gas lamps, and the slow, painful march of time. She told him about growing up in Brooklyn, about her mother's double shifts, about clawing her way to Columbia on scholarships and stubbornness. As dawn approached, Naomi felt Damien's body begin to change. His skin grew cooler, his breathing slower, his grip on her loosened. "I have to go," she whispered, though part of her wanted to stay, to watch him fall into his death-like sleep. "Come back tonight," he murmured, his eyes already losing focus. "Please, let me show you more. Let me—" He didn't finish. The sun crested the horizon somewhere beyond the walls, and Damien Ashford, 347-year-old vampire and CEO of a billion-dollar empire, fell into oblivion in Naomi's arms. She extracted herself carefully, tucking the sheets around him. In sleep, or whatever this was, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. She pressed a kiss to his cool forehead and whispered, "I'll come back." The driver was waiting to take her home. Naomi sat in the back of the Mercedes, watching the city wake up, wondering what she'd just committed herself to. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, her best friend. "Bored loved you yesterday. Drinks tonight to celebrate?" Naomi typed back, "Rain check?" Something came up. She couldn't exactly explain that she'd spent the night with a vampire who'd shown her his secret sanctuary and made her feel more seen than anyone in her entire life. But as she showered and dressed for work, as she went through the motions of her normal human day, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that normal was something she'd never have again. And somewhere across the city, in a hidden chamber beneath a penthouse, Damien Ashford slept and dreamed of dark-skinned hands and the possibility of redemption. Neither of them knew that in a 5-star hotel overlooking Times Square, Elena Rousseau had just arrived from Paris, and she was very much awake. Naomi first saw her in the lobby of Sterling and Cross. It was Thursday afternoon, 48 hours after she'd left Damien sleeping in his hidden chamber. 2 nights of returning to his penthouse, of conversations that lasted until dawn, of kisses that grew more dangerous each time. 2 nights of falling deeper into an impossible love affair with a creature who shouldn't exist. She was reviewing contracts when the receptionist's voice came through the intercom, unusually tentative. "Ms. Baptiste, there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent." "I'm busy." "Can you—" "She said to tell you she's a friend of Damien Ashford's." Naomi's pen froze mid-signature. Something cold unfurled in her stomach. "Send her to conference room C. I'll be there in 5 minutes." She took those 5 minutes to steady herself, to pull on the armor of professionalism she wore so well, but when she opened the conference room door, all her preparation evaporated. The woman standing by the window was devastating. Tall and willowy, with pale skin that seemed to glow in the afternoon light, she had the kind of beauty that made museum paintings look crude. Her hair fell in platinum waves past her shoulders. Her dress was vintage Chanel, perfectly preserved, the kind of piece that belonged in a museum. But it was her eyes that truly unsettled Naomi. Pale green and ancient, holding the weight of centuries behind a carefully cultivated veneer of civility. Naomi Baptiste. The woman's voice carried a French accent, melodious and sharp as cut glass. "How lovely to finally meet you. I'm Elena Rousseau." The name landed like a physical blow. Naomi kept her expression neutral as she closed the door. "Mr. Ashford mentioned you." "Did he?" Elena's smile was arctic. "How thoughtful of him. And what precisely did my dear Damien say about me?" "That you were his ex-lover, that you're ancient and powerful." Naomi moved to the opposite side of the conference table, maintaining distance. "That you're viciously possessive." Elena's laugh was like crystal shattering. How refreshingly direct. American women are so delightfully blunt. She turned fully, and Naomi felt the full force of her attention. "But he failed to mention the most important detail, didn't he? That I am the one who made him. That every breath he takes, well, metaphorically speaking, exists because I chose to give him eternity." The possessive emphasis on "I" sent a clear message. "What do you want?" Naomi asked. "What I want," Elena said, circling the conference table with predatory grace, "is to understand why Damien Ashford, who has spent 3 centuries avoiding emotional entanglement, has suddenly developed a fascination with a human. A brilliant, beautiful human, I'll grant you, but still fundamentally mortal and irrelevant." Each word was designed to cut. Naomi forced herself to remain still, to show no reaction. "You've been to his penthouse," Elena continued. "He's shown you things he guards jealously. He's fed from you, marked you. Do you know what that means in our world? It's a declaration, a claim, and claims invite challenges." "Is that what this is? A challenge?" Elena stopped directly across from Naomi, separated only by the width of the polished table. "This is a courtesy, a warning, if you will. I turned Damien in 1678 after he foolishly got himself killed in a duel over some merchant's daughter. I gave him power, wealth, immortality. For 347 years he has been mine, whether he acknowledges it or not. He's not property, Naomi said quietly. Isn't he? Elena tilted her head, a gesture that was distinctly inhuman despite her beauty. You don't understand our laws, little human. The bond between maker and progeny is sacred, eternal. I can feel him even now, sleeping beneath his fortress, dreaming of you. It makes me quite ill. Naomi's hands curled into fists beneath the table. What do you want from me? I want you to disappear. Eleanor's pleasantness evaporated, revealing something cold and vicious beneath. I want you to resign from your position, leave Manhattan, and never contact Damien again. Do this, and I'll let you live out your brief, meaningless human life in peace. And if I refuse? Then I will make your death so prolonged and agonizing that Damien will spend centuries wishing he'd never caught your scent. Elena leaned forward, her eyes brightening to an unnatural emerald. I have torn apart armies, little girl. I have toppled kingdoms. You are one fragile human with delusions of significance. The compulsion in her voice was immense, a pressure against Naomi's mind that demanded obedience. She felt herself swaying, felt the urge to submit rising like a tide, but something else rose to meet it, something in her blood that blazed bright and hot, pushing back against the invasive presence. Eleanor's eyes widened in genuine shock. What? I said no. Naomi's voice came out steady, her own surprise hidden beneath years of practiced composure. Whatever you're trying to do, it's not working. For the first time, Eleanor looked unsettled. She straightened, studying Naomi with new intensity. Impossible. No human resists compulsion at that level unless they're... She inhaled deeply, and her expression transformed into something between hunger and revelation. Oh, this is extraordinary. What are you talking about? Your bloodline. Elena moved around the table with inhuman speed, and suddenly she was directly in front of Naomi, too close, invading her space. I should have sensed it immediately, but Damien's mark obscured it. You're not just any human. You carry the blood of the Meridian line. Naomi's heart hammered. I don't know what that means. It means, my dear, that you are descended from one of the original bloodlines, humans whose blood holds properties that make them exceptionally valuable to our kind, stronger resistance to compulsion, blood that's more potent, more nourishing, and most importantly, Elena's smile turned predatory, the ability to be turned without losing your mind in the process. The room seemed to tilt. What? Most humans who are turned become mindless creatures or go insane within decades. The transformation is too much for ordinary mortal consciousness. But Meridian descendants... Elena's cool fingers traced Naomi's jaw, and Naomi forced herself not to flinch. They transition smoothly. They retain their full cognitive abilities. They become powerful vampires with remarkable potential. And I have no intention of being turned. Don't you? Elena's laugh was cruel, but that's exactly what Damien wants, isn't it? He's fallen for you, poor fool. He's imagining a future where you stand beside him for centuries, instead of dying in a few pathetic decades. And now that I know what you are, I understand why he's so enthralled. Your blood doesn't just call to him. It promises him the one thing he's never had. A true companion. An equal. Naomi's mind raced. Everything Damien had told her suddenly took on new dimensions. His intensity, his desperation, his talk of possibility. There are only a few dozen Meridian descendants left in the world, Elena continued, stepping back but keeping her predatory focus. Most don't know what they are. They live ordinary lives, occasionally attracting vampire attention but usually dismissed as coincidence. But you, Naomi Baptist, you are a prize. And Damien has claimed you first. I'm not anyone's prize. No, Eleanor agreed, surprising her. You're a threat, because if Damien turns you successfully, if you become what your bloodline promises, you could become powerful enough to rival me. And I have not survived 1100 years by allowing potential threats to grow. 1100 years. The number was staggering. So here's my revised offer, Elena said, her voice dropping to something intimate and deadly. Come with me now. Let me turn you instead. Your bloodline, my ancient power, Damien's careful tutelage over centuries, together we could be unstoppable. You wouldn't be his pet project. You'd be my progeny, my sister in darkness, my equal. I would teach you everything, show you pleasures and powers Damien is too cautious to explore. The offer hung in the air, seductive and terrifying. And if I refuse both options, Naomi asked, if I choose to stay human, stay with Damien, and reject your offer? Elena's expression hardened. Then I invoke the ancient laws, challenge by blood. I will demand that Damien choose, relinquish his claim on you, or face me in ritual combat. And little human when I win, and I will win because I am older, stronger, and infinitely more ruthless. I will take everything from him, his empire, his territory, his dignity, and you. The conference room door burst open. Damien stood in the doorway, and Naomi had never seen him look so dangerous. His silver eyes blazed with barely contained violence. The careful humanity he wore had been stripped away, leaving only the predator. Elena! His voice could have frozen blood. Step away from her, now! Damien, darling. Elena's smile was poisonous sweetness. I was just getting acquainted with your little pet and discovering some fascinating truths about her bloodline. Did you know what she is when you marked her, or was it a fortunate accident? I said, step away. Eleanor laughed, but moved back gracefully. Oh, you did know. I can see it in your eyes. You knew she was Meridian descended, and you marked her anyway. How greedy of you. How unlike the cautious, controlled Damien Ashford I created. You didn't create me. You cursed me. Damien moved into the room, positioning himself between Naomi and Elena. And I stopped being yours a century ago. Did you? Elena's eyes flashed. Then you won't mind when I invoke challenge by blood. Tonight, midnight. The old place in Central Park. The laws demand you answer, or forfeit everything. The silence that followed was suffocating. You can't be serious, Damien said, but his voice had lost its certainty. I invoke it under the witness of the covenant. Eleanor's words carried ritual weight. Damien Ashford, I challenge your claim on Naomi Baptiste. We fight until one submits or falls to true death. The victor claims all, territory, assets, and the Meridian girl. Do you accept, or do you relinquish your claim like a coward? Naomi felt Damien's internal struggle like a physical presence. If he fought, he might lose everything. If he relinquished his claim, she would be defenseless against Elena. There has to be another way, Naomi said. Some other option. There isn't. Elena's satisfaction was evident. The challenge is issued. Damien either fights or surrenders. Those are the only choices. I accept. Damien's voice was hollow. Midnight. Central Park. Covenant rules. Excellent. Elena moved toward the door with inhuman grace. I'll see you both tonight. And Naomi, dear, you might want to say your goodbyes now, because either Damien dies or you become mine. Either way, the girl he's falling for ceases to exist. She was gone in a blur of movement, leaving only the faint scent of expensive perfume and old death. Naomi found her voice first. Damien, we need to leave, now. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. Pack nothing, take nothing. We have 8 hours before midnight, and Elena will have watchers everywhere. Where are we going? Somewhere she can't easily follow. Somewhere I can think. His grip on her hand was almost painful. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I should have known she'd sense you. I should have protected you better." They burst out of Stirling and Cross into the late afternoon chaos of Manhattan. Damien's car was waiting. A different driver, Naomi noticed, and different car. He was already adapting, already planning. "The challenge," Naomi said as they sped through traffic. "Can you win?" Damien's silence was answer enough. "She's 1,100 years old," he finally said. "I'm 347. In our world, age is power. She's faster, stronger, and has centuries more experience in combat. I can hold my own against most vampires. But Elena..." He closed his eyes. "Elena is what nightmares are made of." "Then don't fight." Naomi grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Relinquish the claim. Let me go. I'll disappear, change my identity, leave the country. She'll find you." Damien's voice cracked. "Your meridian descended. She won't let that prize escape. She'll hunt you across continents if necessary. The only thing protecting you right now is my mark. And if I relinquish it, you become fair game for any vampire who catches your scent." "So we're trapped?" "Yes." He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "I'm so sorry. I've destroyed your life in less than a week." The car pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a nondescript building in Queens. Damien led her through a series of security doors to a reinforced safe room, sparse but functional, with no windows and supplies for a siege. "This is one of my emergency locations," he explained. "Eleanor doesn't know about it. We have until midnight to figure something out." Naomi sat on the simple cot, her mind racing through possibilities and finding none that didn't end in disaster. "Tell me about Meridian bloodlines. Tell me everything." Damien settled beside her, and for the next 3 hours he explained the truth. That there were ancient human bloodlines scattered across the world, descendants of people who'd once been part of vampire courts centuries ago. That their blood carried genetic markers that made them extraordinarily compatible with the vampire transformation. That they were prized, hunted, and often turned by force. "Your ancestor," Damien said quietly, "was probably part of a vampire's court 2 or 3 centuries ago. Maybe a willing consort, maybe a prisoner. The bloodline has been diluted over generations, hidden in your genetics. I sensed it the moment I caught your scent, like a key fitting a lock I didn't know existed. And you marked me anyway. Yes. No excuse, no justification, just truth. Because in 347 years, I've never felt connected to anyone the way I felt connected to you in those first 30 seconds. Your blood sang to me. Your soul called to mine. I knew I should walk away. I knew it was dangerous and selfish and wrong. But I marked you anyway because I'm not nearly as noble as I pretend to be." Naomi took his hand, studying his face. "If we survive tonight, if somehow we find a way out of this, would you want to turn me?" The question hung between them. "Every instinct I have screams yes," Damien admitted. "The thought of watching you age, watching you die while I continue on for centuries alone, it's unbearable. But turning is a choice, Naomi, an irrevocable choice. I would never take that from you, even if it means losing you." She kissed him then, pouring every ounce of emotion she couldn't voice into the contact. He responded desperately, his cool hands framing her face, his kiss tasting of eternity and regret. When they broke apart, Naomi rested her forehead against his. "I'm not ready to die, human or vampire. I'm not ready to let Elena win, so we're going to figure this out, together." "How?" The hope in his voice nearly broke her. "You said she's stronger and faster, but you've lived in the modern world. You've adapted. You've built an empire using human systems. What does Elena know about the 21st century? When was the last time she actually had to think instead of relying on raw power?" Damien's eyes widened. You're suggesting we outmaneuver her rather than outfight her. I'm suggesting we use every advantage we have. You know the Covenant rules better than I do. Are there loopholes, technicalities, some way to turn her own challenge against her? For the first time since the confrontation, Damien smiled. You're magnificent. Has anyone ever told you that? Focus, vampire. We have 6 hours until midnight. Start talking. And so they planned. Two beings from different worlds, united by impossible love and desperate determination, racing against time to find a way to survive the night. Outside their fortress, darkness fell over Manhattan. In Central Park, in a clearing known only to the city's ancient supernatural residents, Elena Rousseau waited, confident in her inevitable victory. She had no idea that Naomi Baptiste had spent her entire life turning impossible situations into triumphs, and she was about to learn that a Meridian bloodline didn't just make someone valuable, it made them dangerous. The clearing in Central Park should not have existed. Naomi stood at its edge, Damien's hand wrapped protectively around hers, staring at a space that looked like it had been torn from another century. Ancient trees formed a perfect circle, their branches interwoven overhead to create a natural cathedral. The ground was bare earth, packed hard by centuries of footsteps, marked with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. This was sacred ground for vampires, neutral territory where the oldest laws still held absolute power. Last chance to run, Damien whispered. I can create a distraction. You could... We talked about this. Naomi squeezed his hand. We face her together, or not at all. They'd spent 6 hours planning, researching, arguing their way through every obscure Covenant law Damien could remember. They'd found their loophole. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and required Naomi to put herself directly in harm's way, but it was their only shot. Midnight struck somewhere in the city, church bells echoing across the darkness. Elena materialized in the center of the clearing, because of course she didn't simply walk. She wore black leather tonight, combat-ready, her platinum hair pulled back to reveal a face that had launched wars and toppled empires. Behind her stood 3 other vampires, witnesses, Damien had explained, required by Covenant law to verify the challenge's outcome. Damien, Elena's smile was sharp as broken glass. And you brought your pet. How touching. She can watch you fall. About that. Naomi stepped forward, releasing Damien's hand despite his protest. I invoke the right of substitution under Covenant Article 47. The silence that followed was absolute. Elena's smile vanished. What did you just say? Article 47, Naomi repeated, her voice steady despite her racing heart. When a challenge is issued over a claimed human who carries ancient bloodline markers, that human has the right to fight in place of their vampire protector. The challenge becomes one of worthiness. If the human can survive 3 minutes against the challenger without vampire assistance, the claim stands, and the challenge is nullified. One of the witnesses, an elderly-looking vampire with Asian features, stepped forward. The girl speaks truth. Article 47 has not been invoked in 400 years, but it remains valid. The human must fight the challenger alone, 3 minutes. If she survives, the claim is upheld and cannot be challenged again for 100 years. Elena's eyes blazed with fury. You cannot be serious. She's human, fragile. I'll tear her apart in seconds. Then you'll win easily, Naomi said, moving to the center of the clearing. Unless you're afraid that killing an unarmed human woman will make you look weak in front of witnesses. The manipulation was blatant, but it worked. Elena's pride, her vanity, her 1,100 years of never backing down from a challenge, all of it demanded she accept. Fine. Elena's voice dripped venom. 3 minutes. And when I'm done painting this clearing with your blood, I'll make Damien watch as I slowly tear out your heart. Damien grabbed Naomi's arm, pulling her back. No, I won't let you do this. There has to be another way. There isn't. Naomi cupped his face, memorizing every detail in case these were her last moments. Trust me, trust us. 3 minutes. I can survive 3 minutes. She'll kill you in 30 seconds. Then you'll have to turn me before I die. Naomi kissed him hard, fast. That's the real plan, isn't it? She attacks. You turn me mid-fight. The transformation gives me vampire healing before I can bleed out. Article 47 doesn't specify the human has to remain human for the full 3 minutes, just that they have to survive. Damien's eyes widened. That's insane. The transformation takes hours. The pain alone will be worth it if we win. She stepped back, her decision made. I love you, Damien Ashford. All 347 years of you. Now let's show this ancient bitch why she should have left us alone. Before he could respond, Naomi walked to the center of the clearing and faced Eleanor. I'm ready. The Asian vampire raised his hand. The challenge begins now. Eleanor moved. One moment she stood 10 feet away. The next, she was directly in front of Naomi, her hand wrapped around Naomi's throat, lifting her off the ground with inhuman strength. Did you really think? Elena hissed, her face transforming into something monstrous, eyes blazing, fangs extended, veins darkening beneath pale skin, that your clever little loophole would save you. Naomi couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. Black spots danced across her vision. She clawed at Elena's hand uselessly, her human strength nothing against centuries of vampire power. I'm going to make this last, Elena continued, her free hand trailing down Naomi's chest, claws extending to pierce through fabric and skin. I'm going to open you slowly, let you feel every cut, every broken bone, every... Damien's roar shattered the night. He hit Elena like a freight train, tearing her away from Naomi. Naomi collapsed to the ground, gasping, blood already soaking through her blouse from the wounds Elena's claws had opened. The human called for substitution, the Asian witness shouted. Damien Ashford cannot interfere. Then disqualify me, Damien snarled, positioning himself between Naomi and Elena. I don't care about your laws. I won't watch her die. Elena laughed, blood from her lip where Damien had struck her dripping down her chin. And there it is. The great Damien Ashford, breaking covenant law for a human girl. You just forfeited everything, your claim, your territory, your... Wait. Naomi struggled to her feet, one hand pressed against her bleeding chest. The wounds were deep, agonizing, but not immediately fatal. I didn't ask for help. I didn't call out. He interfered on his own. That's not a forfeit. That's a separate violation. The challenge continues, or you admit you were going to kill me in 5 seconds and prove I never had a fair chance at 3 minutes. The witnesses conferred in rapid French. Elena's expression cycled through rage, disbelief, and grudging respect. The human is correct, the Asian vampire announced. Damien Ashford will face separate judgment for interference, but the Article 47 challenge must be reset. Naomi Baptiste, do you wish to continue? Every rational cell in Naomi's body screamed no. The pain from Elena's claws was excruciating. Blood ran down her torso, soaking into her jeans. She could feel her heartbeat weakening, her vision starting to tunnel. But she'd spent her entire life refusing to quit. I continue, she said, but I request modification. Let Damien turn me now before the challenge restarts. Covenant law says the human must survive 3 minutes. It doesn't specify the state they're in when the clock starts. If I enter the challenge as a vampire in mid-transformation, I'm still technically the same person, still technically fighting for my own claim. The witnesses looked genuinely shocked. The Asian vampire actually smiled. You are either brilliantly manipulative or completely insane. Both, Naomi admitted. Do I have the right or not? More conferring. Elena looked like she wanted to incinerate everyone present. Finally, the request is technically permissible. The spirit of Article 47 is to test the human's worthiness. If she's willing to undergo transformation to prove that worthiness, it fulfills the law's intent. Damien Ashford, you have 60 seconds to begin the turning. The challenge resumes when the transformation begins. Damien was beside Naomi in an instant, catching her as her legs gave out. "You're dying," he whispered, lowering them both to the ground. "Those wounds hit your lung. You have minutes at most." "Then stop wasting time talking," Naomi gasped. "Turn me, make me yours, forever." His eyes searched hers, looking for doubt, for fear. "This will hurt, more than anything you've ever experienced, and once it's done, you can never go back." "I know." She pulled his face down to hers. "I choose this. I choose you. I choose forever. Now bite me, vampire, before I bleed out and ruin our dramatic moment." Despite everything, he laughed. Then his expression sobered, and he whispered against her ear, "I love you, Naomi Baptiste, in this life and every life to come." His fangs sank into her throat. The first sensation was cold, ice flooding her veins, freezing her from the inside out. Then came the pain, not sharp, but vast, an oceanic agony that consumed every nerve ending. She tried to scream, but Damien's venom was already paralyzing her vocal cords, shutting down her human functions one by one. But something else was happening too. Memories that weren't hers flooded her consciousness. She was Damien, 1778, young and terrified, as Elena's fangs pierced his neck in a Paris alley. She was Damien, 1843, watching the woman he'd loved grow old while he remained frozen at 32. She was Damien, 1967, building his first real fortune, learning to navigate the human world. She was Damien, 2025, catching the scent of a woman across a crowded reception and feeling something stir in his dead heart for the first time in decades. She was every moment of his 347-year existence, compressed into seconds of overwhelming sensation, and beneath it all, she felt something ancient awakening. Her meridian bloodline, dormant for generations, roaring to life as vampire venom mixed with genetic memory. She saw other faces, other vampires who'd loved her ancestors, other turnings that had happened across centuries. Her bloodline wasn't just compatible with transformation, it was designed for it, shaped by it, perfected over generations of vampire-human unions. She was born for this. 30 seconds, the Asian witness announced. The transformation has begun. The challenge may resume. Elena stalked forward, her earlier confidence replaced by something darker. Fine. Let's see how well you fight while your body tears itself apart from the inside. But when she reached for Naomi, something unexpected happened. Naomi's hand shot up, catching Elena's wrist with strength that should have been impossible for someone seconds into transformation. Her eyes opened, and they blazed with silver light. Not Damien's controlled luminescence, but something wild and primal. "My turn," Naomi said, her voice layered with something inhuman. She moved. The transformation wasn't complete. She was trapped between human and vampire, her body at war with itself, pain searing through every cell. But her meridian bloodline was doing something unprecedented. Instead of taking hours to transform, her body was accelerating the process, burning through the change with supernatural speed. She was becoming vampire in real time. Elena's shock cost her precious seconds. Naomi used them to attack, her movements gaining speed and power as vampire venom reshaped muscle and bone. She was clumsy, unpracticed, operating on pure instinct. But those instincts were centuries old, inherited from ancestors who'd fought beside vampires, inherited from the Meridian bloodline that had been preparing for this moment across generations. The fight that followed was brutal and brief. Elena, 1100 years old and infinitely more skilled, should have dominated. But she was fighting something she'd never encountered, a Meridian descendant undergoing accelerated transformation, growing stronger with each passing second, fueled by love and desperation, and 3 centuries of Damien's combat memories bleeding into her consciousness. 90 seconds passed. Naomi took hits that would have killed a human, and her transforming body healed them in seconds. She landed blows that surprised Elena, forcing the ancient vampire back step by step. 120 seconds. Naomi felt her human heart take its final beat, then restart with the slow, powerful rhythm of the undead. The pain peaked, then vanished, replaced by clarity so intense it was almost hallucinogenic. Every sound, every scent, every movement in the clearing became vivid beyond description. 150 seconds. Elena's expression shifted from anger to something like fear. "What are you?" she demanded. "I'm Naomi Baptiste," Naomi said, her voice finally steady, finally her own again. "And you just made a very stupid mistake." 180 seconds. The Asian witness raised his hand. 3 minutes have passed. Naomi Baptiste has survived the challenge. By the laws of the Covenant, Damien Ashford's claim stands. The challenge is nullified. Elena Rousseau may not challenge again for 100 years. Elena stared at Naomi, at Damien, at the witnesses. For a moment, violence flickered in her ancient eyes. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. "Extraordinary," she said, her fury giving way to something like admiration. "You orchestrated this entire thing. The loophole, the transformation, the timing. You played me beautifully, little Meridian." "Not little anymore," Naomi replied. "No." Elena's smile turned sharp, and therein lies the problem. "You're a newborn vampire with Meridian bloodline, turned by my own progeny, who just demonstrated unprecedented transformation speed and inherited combat memory. Do you understand what you've become?" "What?" Damien asked warily, moving to Naomi's side. Elena's eyes glittered dangerously. "A threat, not just to me, but to every ancient vampire in existence. The Covenant will hear of this. They'll want to study her, control her, or destroy her. You've won the battle, Damien. But you've just started a war." She vanished before anyone could respond, her witnesses disappearing with her, leaving only the lingering scent of old blood and older threats. Naomi turned to Damien, feeling the full weight of immortality settling over her shoulders. "Tell me she's exaggerating." Damien pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. "I wish I could, but Elena's right. What you just did, what your bloodline just demonstrated, it's unprecedented. Every vampire who learns of this will see you as either an asset to control or a threat to eliminate. So we run?" "No." He pulled back, cupping her face, his silver eyes reflecting her own new metallic gaze. "We fight. Together. We're stronger now, more connected. And if the Covenant wants a war—" A fierce smile crossed his face. "Then let's show them what a Meridian vampire and her maker can do when they stop playing by the old rules." Naomi kissed him, tasting eternity on his lips. Around them, dawn was still hours away, but she felt no fear of the coming day. She felt power, she felt possibility, she felt immortal. But as they left the clearing hand in hand, neither of them saw the figure watching from the shadows. An ancient vampire with eyes like amber, who served the Covenant's ruling council, who'd witnessed everything, and who was already making calls that would change the supernatural world forever. Naomi Baptiste had been reborn as something extraordinary. And the consequences were only beginning. The Covenant arrived on the 7th night. Naomi had spent her first week as a vampire, learning the contours of immortality, the way the world exploded into sensory overwhelming detail. Every heartbeat in a 5-block radius, every whisper, every scent painting pictures in her mind, the hunger that gnawed at her with primal intensity until Damien taught her to feed from his carefully maintained network of willing donors. The strength that let her bend steel bars like wire, the speed that made Manhattan feel small, but most profoundly she learned what it meant to be connected to Damien in ways that transcended the physical. She felt his emotions like echoes in her own chest. She could sense him across the city, a constant presence in her consciousness. Their bond as maker and progeny was more intimate than any human relationship could achieve. Two beings sharing one immortal existence. They'd been hiding in plain sight, maintaining their human routines while preparing for the inevitable reckoning. Damien had called in favors, activated networks centuries old, and fortified his territory. Naomi had resigned from Sterling and Cross with a carefully crafted story about a family emergency overseas. Marcus had been heartbroken, confused, and Naomi had to compel him to forget her gradually, the kindest cruelty she could manage. Then on the 7th night, as they sat in Damien's penthouse reviewing intelligence on Covenant movements, reality shattered. The windows exploded inward. 5 figures materialized in the living room with supernatural speed, moving so fast they barely registered as more than blurs. Damien pushed Naomi behind him, fangs extended, ready to fight. But these weren't attackers, they were the Council. Naomi recognized the Asian vampire from the challenge. He wore formal robes now, crimson silk embroidered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Beside him stood 4 others, a woman with skin like polished obsidian who radiated African power, a man with Nordic features and eyes like glacier ice, another woman who appeared Middle Eastern with jewelry that predated written history, and finally a figure whose gender seemed fluid, whose features shifted subtly, whose age felt immeasurable. Damien Ashford, the Asian vampire, spoke with ceremonial formality. Naomi Baptiste, the Covenant Council requests your presence, not as punishment, he added quickly as Damien tensed, but as inquiry. And if we refuse? Damien asked. The fluid-figured vampire smiled gently. Then we compel you. This is not negotiable, but neither is it hostile. We simply wish to understand what occurred in that clearing, what your progeny has become. Naomi stepped forward, placing her hand on Damien's arm. Through their bond, she felt his protective fury, his fear for her safety. But she also felt something else, her own newfound power, humming through her veins, whispering that she could face whatever came. We'll come willingly, she said, but I want assurances. No harm, no imprisonment, a fair hearing. The obsidian-skinned woman laughed, the sound like distant thunder, bold for a week-old vampire. But your bloodline gives you certain rights. You will be heard. You have my word, and I am Amara, eldest of the African line. My word is law on 2 continents. Then lead the way, Naomi said, squeezing Damien's hand. The world twisted. One moment they were in Manhattan, the next they stood in a vast chamber that existed somewhere outside normal geography. The walls were ancient stone, covered in carvings from every civilization that had ever worshipped the night. The ceilings soared impossibly high, lost in shadows that moved with their own intelligence. At the room's center sat a circular table, and around it waited perhaps 30 vampires, the Covenant's full assembly representing bloodlines from every corner of the world, and standing to one side, watching with barely concealed satisfaction, was Elena Rousseau. Of course, Damien muttered. Elena's smile was poisonous. Did you think I'd miss this? I brought this matter to the Council. Your progeny is unprecedented, Damien. She represents either a revolution or an extinction event for our kind. The Council must decide which. The Asian vampire, who introduced himself as Kenji, eldest of the Eastern line, gestured to 2 empty seats. Please sit, let us begin." What followed was part trial, part scientific inquiry, part philosophical debate. The council questioned Naomi about her transformation, the speed, the inherited memories, the accelerated healing. They tested her, having her demonstrate her abilities while ancient vampires took notes in languages long dead to the human world. She showed them how she could move with speed that rivaled vampires twice her age, how she could access fragments of Damien's memories with concentration, how her body healed from injuries in seconds rather than minutes, how she could resist compulsion from all but the eldest council members, and even then it took effort from them. "Impossible," murmured the Nordic vampire, whose name was Bjorn. "A week-old vampire should be barely functional, consumed by bloodlust, struggling with basic motor control. Instead, she demonstrates mastery that takes decades." "It's the Meridian bloodline," said the Middle Eastern woman Yasmin, "combined with an exceptionally strong maker bond, but more than that." She studied Naomi with eyes that had witnessed empires rise and fall. "There's something else. Something in her human life prepared her for this transition." Naomi met her gaze steadily. "I spent my entire life fighting for respect in a world designed to diminish me. I built armor around myself to survive. Maybe that's why I adapted so quickly, because I've always been surviving impossible situations." Silence fell across the chamber. Finally, the fluid-figured vampire spoke, their voice like wind through empty cathedrals. "I am Sage, and I have existed since humans first learned to make fire. I have seen the rise of every bloodline, the fall of countless progeny, and I tell you this, Council, what stands before us is not a threat. It is an evolution." Elena stepped forward. "An evolution that could destroy the balance. If Meridian descendants can transform this successfully, every vampire will hunt them. The human world will be exposed. Wars will erupt. Or," Naomi interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness, "we could establish new protocols, protect Meridian descendants, ensure their transformations happen under controlled circumstances with makers who won't abuse the power. Turn a potential crisis into an opportunity for our kind to grow stronger, more diverse, more adaptable to the modern world." The council exchanged glances. "She speaks with wisdom beyond her knights," Amara observed. "But wisdom alone does not guarantee safety. Naomi Baptiste, if we allow you to continue existing, you become a symbol, a target. Every ambitious vampire will seek to either turn you to their cause or eliminate you to prevent others from achieving what you have. Your life becomes eternally complicated." "My life was already complicated," Naomi replied. "Being black in corporate America was complicated. Being brilliant in spaces that wanted me to be small was complicated. This," she gestured to herself, to her vampire nature, "this is just a different battlefield, and I've never lost a war I was determined to win." Damien's pride flooded through their bond, warming her from within. Kenji stood, his formal robes rustling. "The council will deliberate. You will wait in the antechamber. We will have a decision within the hour." But before they could move, the chamber doors exploded open. A vampire staggered in, clothes torn, body covered in burns. "The council must act! The schism attacks! Rogue vampires, dozens of them, led by—" Elena's face went pale. "Victor!" "Who?" Damien demanded. "My former lover," Elena said, the words tasting like ash. "Before I turned you, Damien, before I had any sense of restraint, I turned him carelessly and he went mad, became convinced that vampires should rule openly, subjugate humans. The council hunted him, but he escaped 2 centuries ago. If he's returned—" As if summoned by her words, the chamber's walls shook. Explosions echoed from somewhere above. The scent of burning vampire flesh filled the air. "We're under siege," Bjorn said grimly. The schism has chosen tonight to make their move. How convenient. He glared at Elena. I had nothing to do with this, Elena protested. But the council was already mobilizing. Ancient vampires moved with practiced efficiency, preparing defenses, calling reinforcements through methods that predated cell phones by millennia. Sage turned to Naomi and Damien. You wish to prove your worth? Prove your progeny is asset rather than liability? Then fight beside us. Show the Covenant what Naomi Baptiste can do when the existence of our kind hangs in the balance. Naomi met Damien's eyes. Through their bond, she felt his concern, but also his confidence in her. Together, she asked. Always, he replied. They moved as one. The battle that followed would be spoken of in vampire circles for centuries. The schism, rogue vampires who rejected the Covenant's law, who wanted to expose themselves and rule humanity through fear, had chosen their moment well. But they hadn't counted on Naomi Baptiste. She fought with a ferocity that shocked even herself. Her Meridian bloodline gave her speed and strength beyond her age. Her inherited memories from Damien provided combat instincts. But more than that, she fought with the accumulated fury of a lifetime of being underestimated, of being told she was less than, of having to prove herself in every space she occupied. She was done proving herself. Now, she simply was. Beside her, Damien fought with 3 centuries of experience, but they moved in perfect synchronization, their maker bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements, to fight as a single entity with 2 bodies. Where one attacked, the other defended. Where one faltered, the other surged forward. Elena, surprisingly, fought alongside them. Whatever her faults, whatever her possessive cruelty, she was Covenant, and the schism represented everything she despised. The battle raged through the night. The chamber became a war zone, ancient against rogue, order against chaos. Naomi lost track of how many opponents she faced. Her clothes were shredded, her body covered in wounds that healed as fast as they opened. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Because somewhere in the chaos she'd caught sight of Victor, a massive vampire with wild eyes and a voice that commanded his followers with religious fervor. He stood on a raised platform, directing the schism forces, and when his gaze locked onto Naomi, something like recognition flickered across his face. "Another Meridian!" he roared. "Perfect! Imagine what our cause could achieve with such power!" He moved toward her with terrifying speed, and Naomi knew instinctively that she wasn't ready for this fight. Victor was ancient, mad, and powerful beyond anything she'd faced. But she didn't have to face him alone. Damien materialized between them, his protective fury manifesting as raw power. Elena appeared on Victor's flank, and then, one by one, council members joined them. Amara, Kenji, Yasmin, Bjorn, and finally Sage, whose power made the air itself seem to bend. "You challenge one of us," Sage said softly. "You challenge all of us." The fight that followed was brief and brutal. Victor, for all his power, couldn't stand against the combined might of the council plus Damien, Elena, and Naomi. When it ended, he lay broken at their feet, not dead. True death was rare for vampires, but defeated, absolutely. "Bind him," Kenji commanded. "Return him to eternal imprisonment, and scatter his followers. Let them know the price of defying the Covenant." As the chamber slowly returned to order, as the schism forces were systematically neutralized, Naomi found herself standing in the center of the ancient room, covered in blood and glory, with Damien's hand in hers. The council reconvened around their circular table. No deliberation was needed now. "Naomi Baptiste," Amara said, her voice carrying the weight of judgment, "you have proven yourself in the oldest way our kind recognizes, through blood and battle. The Council's decision is unanimous. You are recognized as a full member of the Covenant, with all rights and protections therein. Your Meridian bloodline is declared a sacred trust." Any vampire who harms a Meridian descendant without just cause will face council judgment. Sage smiled, their shifting features settling into something almost paternal. Moreover, we name you ambassador to the modern world. You understand the 21st century in ways we ancient ones struggle with. Help us adapt, help us survive, guide us into this new age. Naomi felt tears, blood-tinged, a vampire's tears, streaked down her cheeks. I accept, on one condition. The council waited. Meridian descendants get to choose. No forced turnings, no exploitation. If we're going to be special, let us be special in our own way, in our own time. Give us agency. Kenji inclined his head. Agreed. Let it be law. Elena stepped forward then, and Naomi tensed. But the ancient vampire's expression held no malice now, only weary respect. I concede, Elena said simply. You won, little Meridian, not through manipulation or luck, but through genuine worth. Damien chose well. She hesitated, vulnerability flickering across her ageless face. I release my claim, formally and forever. Be happy together. Build something I never could. She disappeared before Naomi could respond, leaving only the faint scent of expensive perfume and old regrets. Naomi stood on the terrace of Damien's penthouse, their penthouse now, watching the sun set over Manhattan. Beside her, Damien wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. Nervous about tonight, he asked. Terrified, she admitted. My first official council session as ambassador. What if I mess up? You won't. His confidence flowed through their bond, steadying her. You've already revolutionized 3 Covenant protocols, established the Meridian Protection Program, and convinced Sage that Instagram is not, in fact, a form of human witchcraft. Naomi laughed, the sound joyful and free. That last one was touch and go. 6 months. Half a year as a vampire, and she'd done more than survive. She'd thrived. She'd discovered that her Meridian bloodline gave her unique abilities. She could walk in dawnlight for brief periods, something that astonished even the Council. She could sense other Meridian descendants, helping the Covenant protect them rather than exploit them. And her bond with Damien had grown into something that transcended romance. They were truly 2 souls, sharing one eternal existence. Marcus had reached out last week, the compulsion finally fading. She'd met him for coffee, carefully, hungrily, but successfully. She'd explained her new job opportunity overseas, promised to stay in touch, and watched him walk away into his normal human life with bittersweet acceptance. Some bridges could be maintained, others had to burn to make space for new construction. Her mother had been harder. Naomi had arranged a video call, compulsion keeping the truth hidden, inventing a story about a wealthy benefactor, a research position in Europe, opportunities too good to refuse. Her mother had cried, proud and sad in equal measure, making Naomi promise to visit. Someday, when she'd mastered the art of appearing human enough, she would. Do you regret it? Damien asked softly, reading the melancholy in her emotions. Giving up the sun, your old life. Naomi turned in his arms, meeting his silver eyes with her own. I regret nothing. I chose this. I chose you. I chose forever. And every night when I wake beside you, when I feel your presence in my chest like a second heartbeat, I know I made the right choice. She kissed him as the last rays of sunlight faded, as the city transitioned from day to night, as her world, their world, came alive with supernatural possibility. Besides, she said against his lips, I'm just getting started. Meridian ambassador, Covenant reformer, immortal badass. I've got centuries to make my mark on this world. Our mark, Damien corrected. I'm not letting you save the world alone. Our mark, then. She pulled him close, feeling the weight of eternity settle over them like a blessing. Together. always. Far below, Manhattan pulsed with life, millions of humans who would never know that above them, in a penthouse that defied architecture, two vampires were building something unprecedented, a love that transcended death, a partnership that bridged centuries, a future that rewrote the rules. Naomi Baptiste had sworn it was just a midnight delusion, but she'd been gloriously, catastrophically wrong. This was real. This was forever. This was blood eternal.